Hello, and welcome to another edition of Vine TV. I'm Pastor Frederick Tappan, Senior Pastor of Eureka True Vine Baptist Church. And thank you for joining us for the Monday morning message. In Jeremiah chapter 1 and verse 5, Jeremiah is called to serve. And that's what we're going to talk about today, being called to serve. And when I looked at that scripture, the first part of that scripture, the A part says, "Before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee." And so that word know is yadah from the Hebrew, and it means a very intimate knowing, a very intimate relationship. And it's the highest form of relationship that God has with man. And so before we were formed in our mother's womb, God knew us. The Bible tells us that He knows every hair on our head. He knows us intimately. He knows us emotionally. He knows us spiritually. And so it's having a very strong bonded relationship with God is the first step in the call to serve. And then the B part of that verse, it says, before I knew you, and not only before I knew you, before you came out of the womb, I sanctified you. And that word sanctified from the Hebrew is kadesh, which means to be holy and consecrated. And God prepares us. He separates us to come to the point where He can use us. There are some things that we have to separate ourselves from in order for God to use us. Some sins that we have to separate ourselves from. Some people that we have to separate ourselves from. Some situations that we have to separate ourselves from in order for God to call us to serve. And finally, the C part of the verse says, "And I ordained thee a prophet unto the nations." And the word ordained is yatsar, which means we are prepared for a divine purpose for God. Before we were born, He knew us. Before we came out of the womb, He consecrated us. And now He is telling us that we have a divine purpose. And no matter what we do, no matter where we go, God has a divine purpose for our lives. Sometimes we veer away from that purpose, but the purpose is still there. Sometimes we lag behind in our purpose, but the purpose is still there. God has called us to serve because He has a personal relationship with us. He has called us to serve because we are sanctified, and He has called us to serve because we are ordained for a divine purpose. I want you to know today that no matter what your situation is, no matter how far you have been away from God or how long you've been away from God, you still have been called to serve. Now today, what I want you to do is just say, "Lord, I accept the calling and I'm ready to do what you have called me to do." Today is your day, and now is your time to serve. Thank you for joining us for the Monday morning message, and may God richly bless you.